Hello, information architects and designers. Today is the 10th annual World Information Architecture Day. My name is Cassini Nazir. I'm a designer of conversations, curricula, and interfaces. Well, there's no easy way to say it. We have a problem with information. Information has been harnessed at an unprecedented scale in recent years to foster confusion, harm, and chaos in our world. The English word pandemic means all people. Many digital information systems created in the last decade have created digital pandemics that, at their present trajectory, would affect a global population. And like our health pandemic, many problems in our information pandemic are somewhat predictable, but hard to see at their outset, increasingly noticeable and perceivable with time, and grow quickly to an insurmountable scale, inevitably creating massive disruption. What both have in common is that they start out small. Not so long ago, we were excited about the convergence of information on the small screen. We designed for screens this size. Designing for something that small gives you an illusion of control. That illusion of control has, over time, created a thorny and tangled mess. Thanks to Abby Covert and many others, information architects, strategists, and design professionals have learned how to transform a mess into information. But what's information made of anyway? Well, iron, foam, and tin. What'd you expect? But there's also a deeply troubling problem. Hidden inside information are our deeply held beliefs that give us a firm notion. We tend to make up our minds too quickly, holding on to ideas that are often incomplete, inaccurate, wrong, or harmful. And the worst part is, we don't even realize it. The more firmly we hold on to our notions, the greater the illusion that we possess knowledge. And in turn, we avoid seeking out new or additional information, all the while forgetting that there are other things out there waiting to be explored. What things could we make with them? So, in order to avoid a firm notion, we must go back to that original mess and seek out an icy suitor: curiosity. This video will give you a first orientation to a strange, fascinating, and fragile phenomenon: being curious. You and I will explore what curiosity is, ways we can be more curious, and if possible, how we might invite others to be curious. Why? Well, first, curiosity is powerful. It can enhance intelligence and increase perseverance. Being curious propels us to deeper engagement, superior performance, and more meaningful goals. Curiosity can also bring awareness and mindfulness. It reminds us of things we've forgotten, helps us to see familiar things with fresh eyes, and invites us to explore new things. Curiosity also initiates access to new or different ideas. Those ideas don't come fully formed, of course. We have to allow an abundant margin of time for our curiosity to give form to meaning. Curiosity is often a product of boredom. If we do give margins of time, we're rewarded when our ideas take shape and walk on their own.
Hey! Phew!
Without that margin of time, our ideas lose balance and coherence. If we don't see our curiosity to its end, we may form incomplete mental models. But what is curiosity anyway? Well, curiosity is commonly defined as the recognition, pursuit, and desire to explore novel, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous events. It's a feeling of interest in a situation where potential exists for learning. We exhibit a level of patience and want to see what happens. Curiosity is like table salt. Both salt and curiosity can add flavor to our lives. Salt is essential for life in general, so too, I would argue, is being curious. Salt placed in a cut causes pain. Curiosity has the potential to cause us pain or difficulty. We used salt to help us tell time, so too we commission our curiosity to help us pass time in moments of boredom. Salt preserves food. Curiosity, in the right context, can preserve our lives by stretching our minds. And perhaps most important for our discussion, like salt, curiosity is something we humans can naturally produce. The question is how? Curiosity manifests as an emotion, a way of thinking, a behavior, and an aperture. Each gives us a different avenue to curiosity. Emotions are complex. Psychologists propose anywhere from 3 to 11 foundational emotions. Robert Plutchik developed the Wheel of Emotions, a visual framework to describe human emotions. In it, 8 basic emotion dimensions allow at least 24 emotion combinations. Although visually simple, the model posits that emotions are the result of complex sequences of events. Plutchik's approach may appeal to you as an information architect because it provides a semantically consistent set of distinct emotions, a clear organizational structure, and a standard set of names, all characteristics of good IA. Much like colors on a color wheel, where colors can be combined to form different colors, basic emotions combine to form other emotions. And emotions can be organized by how often we feel them. Curiosity is a sometimes felt emotion. Which of these emotions do you think combine to yield curiosity? If you guess trust and surprise, give yourself a pat on the back. Trust means that curiosity manifests as a collective process, requiring a level of vulnerability among people. Surprise forces us to stop, reorient, and recalibrate. Note that both emotions, trust and surprise, are needed to cultivate the emotion of curiosity. So what's the opposite of curiosity? Cynicism, which is a combination of disgust and anticipation. Now, I don't know about you, but we had a lot of that in 2020, didn't we? Want your team to be more curious? Cultivate trust, give them support, and then change up routines every so often to create positive surprises. Want to be more curious yourself? Surprises are all around us, waiting to be discovered. The world isn't lacking in wonders. We are often lacking a sense of wonder. So, change your routines. Our environment shapes so much of our behavior. A pre-COVID study found that we've spent most of our day in just a few locations where it becomes easy to form complex routines and a myriad of habits, not all of them good. So next time you drive home, take a completely different route. Or make a plan to introduce yourself to new things. With each new year, a good friend of mine plans to explore new things weekly. Watch 52 new documentaries or read 52 new books. Curiosity enlists a seldom used punctuation mark. Most of our thoughts end with a period and not a question. Our default mode is to seek answers and not questions. This can unwittingly lead us to ask only questions for which we know the answer. Now, that's fine in a world that doesn't change much, but as the world becomes more complex and dynamic, and as the rate of change increases, the value of answers decreases and the value of questions increases. What's the worst thing you can do with a difficult question? Answer it too quickly. Questions activate curiosity, and designers are in the practice of keeping journals. So, begin a curiosity journal. A few guides. Get a pocket-sized journal, one that you can take out and jot things down. Use the first page to introduce your journal. Every page after that should have only questions. And finally, have fun. You can sketchnote your questions. Now, somebody might have the idea to build a Curiosity Journal app. Please don't. Curiosity is fragile. The slightest interruption, and it disappears. A journal like this lets questions linger longer. You can apply this idea at work. The tone of a meeting is easily changed by making agenda items questions instead of declarations. On our website, we have a few more ideas to help explore ways of thinking. We'll even teach you how to play question tennis. Richard Warman, who coined the term information architect, reminds us to not forget the quest in our questions. Answering tough questions often demand action and persistence. Patricia Moore, one of the founders of Universal Design, traveled to 100 cities across America and Canada pretending to be 85 years old.
Now, when I was 85, I was 26. And no, I am not drunk.
Moore wore her grandmother's clothes, she put on uncomfortable shoes that made walking difficult, plugged her ears to distort her hearing, and wore thick glasses that blurred her vision.
If I could be an elder, perhaps I could then speak about the needs of older people everywhere as consumers.
This experience helped Moore understand more intimately how difficult the world can be to navigate as an elder, and also how to better design for our elders.
I have never designed for what a person can't do. And so the focus is always on their capacity, their ability. What are they able to manage? And then, with that view, how can we make the situation better?
Now, you don't have to go to the lengths that Patricia Moore did, but you can use curiosity to put on the mantle of understanding. Curiosity teaches us to look with 4 eyes, our own and others unlike us. Now, how do you summon curiosity in your design practice to begin to understand the experience of others? Run an empathy immersion workshop. These workshops force you to do what Patricia Moore did. Step out of your shoes and into that of another person. Of course, we can't fully understand others' experiences, but we can certainly better understand them. Curiosity, when combined with empathy, can yield transformative insights. Curiosity is about the demand and supply of information and experiences. Economist and psychologist George Loewenstein described this as the information gap. Curiosity arises when there's a gap between what we know and what we want to know. Loewenstein is describing a sort of mental itch. We metaphorically scratch that itch by gathering new information. The itch of curiosity follows a bell curve. We're interested when we know a little about something, piquing our curiosity, but not too much, because we're still uncertain about the answer. And once the itch of curiosity has been scratched, the desire for new information is gone. Many websites use a scratch the itch model to provide immediate gratification. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just not the only way to satisfy curiosity. Another way to think of curiosity is as an aperture. Light travels through a camera aperture. Any photographer knows that the aperture is only half the story. The length of time the light spends through the aperture is equally important. Photographers call this shutter speed. Like images, our ideas and understanding can be underexposed, not letting enough light in to clearly see the information. As our aperture of curiosity closes and we reduce our desire to know, we have to continually renew it through time. How do we do that? Well, there's an extremely elegant solution. One of the most powerful words for this is the word else. What else? How else? Who else? Why else? Let's try something. Say out loud the first word that comes to your mind when I say this. Table. Did you say chair? Most people say that as their first response. We are often curious in very predictable ways. Use the word else to be more curious and in unpredictable ways. What else comes to mind when I say table? What else? What else? What else? Information can convince us that what we see is all there is. Curiosity helps us ask, is there more? An unfortunate side effect of well-designed information architecture is that it can sometimes give us answers before we've even had time to ask the questions. Perhaps our interfaces should also help us generate better questions. So we explored 4 avenues to curiosity: our emotions, ways of thinking, behavior, and the aperture of curiosity. Now, you may have asked yourself at some point, how curious are you? We should really ask ourselves, how are you curious? Todd Kashdan and his colleagues discovered that curiosity is multi-dimensional. Their research discovered 5 distinct dimensions of curiosity called the 5-dimensional curiosity scale. These 5 dimensions are joyous exploration, the recognition and desire to seek out new knowledge and information, and the subsequent joy of learning, deprivation sensitivity, and emotional curiosity driven more by tension and hard labor than by joy. This kind of curiosity enjoys pondering complex ideas, solving difficult problems, and striving to diminish gaps in knowledge. Stress tolerance, the willingness to embrace the stress and ambiguity of exploring new, mysterious, or risky experiences. Social curiosity, the desire to know what other people are thinking and doing by listening to, talking, and socializing with other people. And thrill-seeking, the willingness to take physical, social, and financial risks in order to acquire new experiences. Now, we all have some element of each of these 5 dimensions in our personality. Kashdan's 5-dimensional scale helps us understand the dimensions of curiosity. But not everyone's curious about the same things in the same ways, so Kashdan identified these 4 distinct types of curious people. The fascinated, people with inquisitive minds who are social, enthusiastic, who love to be in the know, and who thrive on the unpredictable and see life as an adventure. Problem solvers, who are hardworking individuals with core value of independence, who love to learn while working relentlessly at problems they feel must be solved. Empathizers, who love to understand why people do what they do. Empathizers often prefer to observe what's going on around them instead of participating. Avoiders, who demonstrate little curiosity and confidence. They shy away from things they don't know or understand. They avoid confrontation when possible and lack understanding of their emotional life. What kind of curious are you? Want to find out? Take a curiosity quiz and discover what kind of curious you are. Designing in the 21st century can be both exasperating and exhilarating. More of our world in the 21st century has been shaped by our consumer desires and demands, our politics, our differences, and our fears than by our curiosity. We are, after all, still living in the digital Stone Age. But regardless of what age we live in, information will always be important. So too will information architecture. After all, information architecture has always been about the oohs and the ahs, finding things we were looking for, and discovering things we weren't.
Ooh.
How do you embed curiosity in experiences you're designing? Well, curiosity follows a very simple pattern. You, the designer, extend an invitation to someone to be curious. That invitation can be accepted, or rejected, or ignored. Most invitations require us to act or respond in some way. There's then an inflection point where we're meaningfully and satisfyingly rewarded for taking action on curiosity. See if you can find that pattern in this video.
Scan my boarding pass. Oh.
Curiosity offers few straight lines. Now, I've shown you Legos for a reason, and not just because I still enjoy playing with them. Maybe your Lego activity starts like mine, with two simple questions. What shall we build? And how shall we build it? These are good questions for curious designers. As mentioned earlier, we are living in the digital Stone Age. And much like the first Stone Age, our digital Stone Age will pass. But the first Stone Age didn't end because they ran out of stones. It ended because they found something better. Engage your curiosity. What future shall we build?